All right, diving in today, and listener discretion is advised. Fair warning. This one's going to be a tough one. We're tackling the case of Joel Rifkin.
Yeah, his name sends chills down your spine for a reason.
He terrorized New York City and Long Island for years, brutal murders, 17 women.
1989 to 93, those were dark times. And we're going way beyond the headlines here.
Absolutely, we're unpacking everything. His crimes, yeah, but also what made this guy tick? What led him down this path?
It's dark, it's disturbing, but it's important. So let's start at the beginning.
Okay, so Brooklyn, right? Rifkin's childhood. What was his early life like?
Imagine this. A young Joel Rifkin, growing up in Brooklyn, facing abuse and violence in his own home.
Man, talk about a recipe for disaster. Tough to even imagine, right?
Right. And while it's crucial to remember that this is never an excuse for violence, experts say these early traumas, especially in childhood, can have a huge impact.
Yeah, definitely. Scars run deep, right? So how does a traumatic childhood, how does that play into someone becoming a killer?
Well, some psychologists argue that early trauma can actually damage a person's ability to feel empathy for others.
Wow. It's like their capacity for caring, it's stunted somehow.
Exactly. Again, not an excuse, but it's a piece of the puzzle.
It's like trying to understand the darkness, right? The why behind these horrific acts.
Right. And to be clear, we're not condoning his actions, just trying to trace the roots of his behavior.
Absolutely. Understanding, not endorsing. Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. 1989. His first victim. How did it all begin?
It started with a woman named Susie Soto. She struggled with addiction, was involved in sex work, and tragically, she became Rifkin's first victim.
And sadly, it's a pattern we see too often. These vulnerable women, often overlooked by society.
Exactly. Many of his victims were on the margins, facing poverty, addiction. It's easy to focus on the killer, but we have to remember the 17 women whose lives were cut short.
Absolutely. They were daughters, mothers, sisters, friends. They had dreams, aspirations. Can you tell us about some of them? Help us remember them as individuals.
I think it's crucial that we do. There was Lorraine Orvieto. She was a single mother, actually studying to become a court reporter.
Wow, working towards a brighter future.
Exactly. And Marianne Holloman, she loved to dance and had this dream of opening a bakery. These weren't just names on a list. They were real people with hopes and dreams.
It's heartbreaking. You mentioned that Rifkin often targeted vulnerable women. Was there a specific way he chose his victims?
It's chilling, but this is where the psychology of a serial killer comes in. Research suggests perpetrators like Rifkin often seek out individuals they see as easy targets, often those who are marginalized or less likely to be missed.
It's a terrifying thought, someone looking at another human being as a target. And it highlights those cracks in society, right? The inequalities that leave some people more vulnerable.
Absolutely. It's a stark reminder of the systemic issues that contribute to this kind of violence.
It's a lot to unpack. Okay, so we know he targeted these women. How did he actually carry out these murders? What was his MO?
It was horrifyingly consistent. He'd lure them in, often with promises of money or drugs, and then strangle them, sometimes during a struggle, other times while they were, well, incapacitated.
God, it's just so cold, so calculated.
And then he would dispose of their bodies in secluded areas around Long Island, often dismembering them to avoid detection. It's chilling.
It's the stuff of nightmares, really. And it went on for years. But 1993, it all came crashing down. A routine traffic stop, of all things.
You can't make it up. A missing taillight. It really does sound like something out of a movie.
It does. So walk us through that. What happened?
Rifkin was pulled over for this minor infraction, a broken taillight, but it ultimately led to a police chase. And when they finally stopped him, they found the body of Wendy Gill, his final victim, in his truck.
I can't imagine the shockwaves that sent through New York. How did people react? What was the public sentiment like?
Chaos, honestly. Fear, anger, a sense of disbelief. This guy, this monster, had been living among them, hiding in plain sight. The media was relentless, every detail scrutinized and debated.
Did the public put any blame on law enforcement, for not catching him sooner?
Definitely. There was immense pressure on the police. Questions were asked, criticisms were made, everyone wanted answers.
And what about Rifkin? What happened after his arrest?
He confessed. He actually provided chilling details about his crimes, helping to piece together the puzzle of his killing spree.
It's almost more disturbing when they confess, isn't it? Like, it confirms their lack of remorse.
It's a difficult thing to process, and it leaves us with a lot to grapple with. What can we as a society learn from a case as dark as this?
That's the big question, isn't it? We're left with this feeling of unease, but also responsibility.
It's about being vigilant, being aware of those around us, especially those who might be vulnerable.
And recognizing that these monsters, they walk among us. They look like everyday people.
They do. And it's about fostering a society where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued, so no one slips through the cracks.
We've got to do better. We have to look out for one another. This case, as tough as it is to confront, it's a reminder that the fight for a safer world never ends.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And that awareness, empathy, action, those are our most powerful weapons.
Powerful words to end on. It's a lot to process, but sometimes the darkest corners reveal the most important lessons.